been it's been a little rainy the last couple of days, which is nice, right? We need it. But yeah, it's been a little bit wet.
Yeah, we had some of that here the other day. A couple of tornadoes passed through not too far away, I was told, and I just had to pick up some sticks, so I got lucky.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, I'm
you ready to
glad
get
everybody's
rolling?
safe. Yeah,
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 hey,
yeah.
you ready to get
Whenever.
rolling? Cool, I'll
Sounds
get
good.
you started. Hey, everybody, it's a real privilege to introduce Rob Cook, an accomplished talent acquisition executive with over 20 years' experience transforming hiring programs across the public and private sectors. He currently leads talent and veteran outreach at Regional One, where he's reduced agency staffing by over 90% and launched Aegis AER Talent, a veteran focused staffing solution. He's a former Army National Guard talent leader, infantryman, and his past roles span healthcare, higher ed, and aerospace, always with a mission to empower people through purpose driven hiring. He brings real world insight, tactical experience, and strategic know how that every transitioning vet needs to hear. Welcome, Rob. I'm pretty sure I got it all right.
I appreciate you, man. Well, first of all, thanks for having me, everybody. Thanks for being here. There's not a lot of what I want to say, a formality in this conversation. I like to come here and support wherever I can. So the very first thing I want to do is I'm going to put my LinkedIn there in the chat. But
Beat
while
me to
while
it.
we're sitting there, there we go. So it's really just R Cook, backslash R Cook RDP. Um, so a little bit about me, right? And here's my story, and then I'll tell you the few things that I've learned. Um, I started active duty Army, 82nd Ranger Bat, all the fun stuff. Infantry, then changed MOSs to medic, and for uh, for a little while there, I was deployed all the time, and so I came back home and became a recruiter, right? And it was turned out that I was pretty decent at it. You know what they say about recruiters. Everybody remembers their recruiter, right? All recruiters are BS artists and all that fun stuff. Well, it turns out I was one of the better BSers, and so I was pretty successful, and I moved up the ranks pretty quick. Um, I wound up actually retired out of the National Guard out of Montana, which is awesome, right? I love Montana. Anybody here from Montana or the North Carolina National Guard? Good. So I could tell all the fake stories too, right? Like I made it all the way to Sergeant Major of the Air Force at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Um,
On your
there we
Coast
go.
Guard
Great
days.
Falls. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Coast Guard as well at the same time. Great Falls is awesome. So they've got Malmstrom Air Force Base there out in Great Falls, and I was there for one of those days when somebody ran the gate. Uh, that was one of the funniest mornings I've ever seen. Yeah, the special police running out and the base shutting down and barricades and helicopters up in the air and everything because that's it's one of our special facilities. Yeah.
It glows at night.
Yeah, right. Yeah, 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 yeah. You guys know. So yeah, so I was blessed, right? So um I knew I was retired, right? I knew I didn't want to retire out of Fort Bragg, and so that's where Montana came from. So I started doing some research about 3 years before my retirement. I had no idea what I wanted to do when I grew up. And so how many of you are joined the military because you said, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up? That was me, and it's still me. At 40, I turned 48 this month. And at 48 years old, I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up. But I do know I love my wife, I love my kids, and I want to provide for them the best opportunity that I possibly can. Um, and I'll tell you another thing. There's generally two people, right? Two types of individuals. There's old NCOs like me who they know it's time to get out because holy crap, you're yelling at soldiers when they don't deserve it, right? And you're saying things and you can't bite your tongue anymore. That was me, right? I knew it was time. It's definitely time for me to retire. And then there's other folks who get out and they're like, yep, I did my time and I know exactly what I want to do. And they jump into the civilian world and probably more successful than me. And congratulations to you guys. Um, for me, I needed a cooling off period. And so, not everybody's going to agree with this piece of advice, but the first thing I tell you is during your transition. please, 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 please do not get mad at yourself because that first job is not perfect. For me, I had to take what I like to call a throwaway job, a job that I could get into the civilian world. I could transition my mind, my brain, my emotions, right? My emotions. I could transition to a civilian speak, to a language. Um, for me, so there's a Glacier Bank Corps up in the Pacific Northwest. 15 different, 16 subordinate branches, and I was their director of safety and security, right? It was a good job, big title, didn't mean anything, right? No money. Essentially, I made sure that the break rooms had band-aids and there was a protocol in case somebody did like a slip and fall, right? Um, but for me, the transition was, I had to learn to not get angry when banks are supposed to open at 8:30 and they weren't open until 8:32, right? Like, yeah, first formation. Um, and so for me, that first job was what I call my throwaway job. It was an opportunity for me to mentally transition out of the service. It was an opportunity to make mistakes and not have to worry about, oh my gosh, the end of the world is coming. And I needed that. And then after that, I opened up my own bar, restaurant, casino in the Bitterroot Valley. Um, that was awesome. It took a long time building a business plan, doing research. Spent a long amount of time talking to different banks and having conversations and learning the industry of banking and how to finance a business. Sold that in end of 2021, 36% net profit on it, and moved to Florida. Came to Florida and I jumped into healthcare as a recruiter. It was a kind of a natural progression, right? Going from a combat medic to going to a combat medic to a recruiter. And I got to put on glasses, so don't laugh at me for wearing reading glasses, y'all. That's not fair. Um, but yeah, I went and became a recruiter for a healthcare company. Um, and when I was a recruiter, well, I was director of recruiting. But that organization had some fiscal difficulties, and so they wound up laying off probably 40% of the organization within my second year there. So that's how I transitioned to the education arena. I worked at a university for a year. That's how I got to talent acquisition here at Region 1 and Aegis Air Talent. Uh, yeah, see, so at 6'7", nobody's going to make fun of you because they can't flap them, right? But for me, I'm 5'7". It's easy to knock them off of mine.
Throw some sand at you.
Yeah. Will, that's huge, by the way. You would not be allowed in a tank. Um, but yeah, so what's important? What the thing that I've learned is number one, for those of us who don't know what we want to be when we grow up, um, I get it. You got to pick something. That's the reality. You just got to pick something. And so for me, what it turned into, especially my military background, and I was able to get a job here and a job there, has now turned into my career. And I'm okay with that, right? I enjoy helping people find jobs. I enjoy relationships. I enjoy what we do here. I spend a lot of my time doing mentorship, veteran mentorship down in South Florida. I actually uh, co-run a group called Broward Vet Working. So if you're going to relocate or if you're currently in South Florida, browardvetworking.org. It's a professional society. We've got about 750 members right now, all folks who own their own businesses, and we work together and we mutually support each other. So veterans helping veterans kind of thing. We have several people who own their own agencies, lawyers, doctors, blah, 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 insurance agents, real estate agents. So the first thing I would tell you is even if you don't know what you want to be when you grow up, you got to pick something. The second thing you need to do is network, 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 network. And then when you're not thinking you're doing it right, do it some more. And when you're doing it right, do it even more than that. Um, because everything out here in today's world is all networking. Doesn't matter how great the resume is. I looked it up before we hopped on, and there's over 1,000 people on LinkedIn that say they're Navy SEALs, right? every like I looked it up. There's over 1,000 Navy SEALs on LinkedIn who are bragging that they're the experts of the world on leadership, right? And they probably are. That's awesome. That's wonderful. But my point is when you make that transition from military to civilian, right? Um, well, I mean, what is there? 60,000 of us that get out and retire or ETS every single year. So 60,000 of us joining the workforce. There's another 250,000 college graduates. And us that are retiring and a computer or a college graduate, we're fighting for the same jobs. And so what's going to make you stand out? What's going to make you unique? It's your ability to talk like an adult, it's ability to network, it's ability to influence. All those things that you learned in the military uh, have tremendous value. Word of mouth. That's the way you find the job that you want. That's my first uh, solid like concept that I learned was as a recruiter, I'm going to take the person that's referred to me rather than go through 1,000 resumes. Because right now, I am actively looking for a DevOps engineer. And so this DevOps engineer, I just want him to have some fundamentals. I want him to live in South Florida. I've had 3,500 applicants in 1 week, right? I'm not going through 3,500 resumes. I'm going to call some people I know and say, who do you have? Who do you have? Who do you recommend? Network, 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 network. And when you're not done, when you are done networking, network some more. It never ends. So I'm going to pause there. That's a lot of story. I know there's probably one or two questions. See, you got me, Dante, by a couple. All
Yeah, I
right.
mean,
Any questions so far?
I've definitely got one. Talk to us about the bar in Montana. How did you figure all that stuff out for yourself? For the more
Yeah.
entrepreneurial type, who want to own a business.
Yeah. So our entrepreneurs out there, look, the first thing I knew was I had a background in the restaurant world as a kid, family, and all that fun stuff. I like bartending. I like entertaining people. So I could see myself in that business, right? That was the number one thing. The next thing I did was I talked to, realtors, and I wanted to figure out, do I want to start something from the ground up, or do I want to acquire something and just grow it or rehash it? So I talked to a realtor and they showed me a commercial realtor and they showed me in the Bitterroot Valley, which was like 120 miles long. They showed me 53 bar, restaurants, casinos with a liquor license that were currently available for purchase. And so I did a little bit of analysis. I did like a year's worth of analysis. I looked at the different venues, the taxes, the insurance, and narrowed it down to like my top five. And then I started talking to the Ravalli County Economic Development Association or Authority. And every county's got it. If you're interested in business, if you want to start your own business, every county or major municipality has an economic development agency. And their whole point and purpose is to help you start a business because when you start a business, you pay taxes. And that's huge, right? And so the counties will pay full-time staff to do these economic development programs, and they'll give you free counseling. They'll help you write a business plan. They'll help you research, data. They'll help you network within the community. They'll introduce you to bankers. Um, I was fortunate enough. The Economic Development Authority gave me a preformed business plan, and I looked at it and I worked on it. I worked on it, and it helped me answer questions that I would have never thought to ask. Right? It's trafficability of the locations, those kind of things. Montana, it's all wells, right? So when was the last time the well was pumped and drained, and what's the cost to replace? Really interesting dynamics of the business plan. So once I had a business plan, then I went to a bank. And the first time I went to a bank, they said, "Hey, love your business plan. Here's your gaps." And so, fill the gap, fill the gap, fill the gap. Went to a different bank and they said, "Hey, love the business plan, but we're not in that industry, meaning, restaurants and bars and stuff like that. They weren't going to lend to that industry. But he recommended me, again, networking, he recommended me to another bank that was in that industry. So I talked to that guy and he said, "Hey, look, Rob, we're in that industry, but we're over leveraged. In that geography, we're not going to be lending." Um, but then they, recommended another bank. And so I went to that bank, and that happened to be the bank that already held the loan from the seller. So they said, "Hey, Rob, we are not going to take on this loan again, but such and such a bank just entered this market. They have no presence. I know a guy there. I went to college with him, and they literally introduced me to another banker, commercial loan officer, who took my took my business plan and said, 'Holy crap, this is genius.' And not only did they fund it 100%, but they also gave me 6 months of operating capital. So I was able to, within, you know, 5 months of networking and connecting and, knocking on doors and having conversations, I was able to secure 100% funding for a business loan, operating capital, the whole nine. Um, and they recommended their cousin, who was a real estate agent, who helped me get the property.
Well, networking on his side too. Michael, you got a question? Go ahead, sir.
There we go. Didn't unmute the first one. I clicked it. All right. Thanks for being on here. I saw that you went through Liberty University, um,
Yes, sir.
and I did as well. And in fact, I graduated with my Master of Divinity in 2022, and I was there in Lynchburg for the commencement for that. So that's really cool. With what you're doing with the talent acquisition. Um, I'll ask first one, which will be a good break in the water question. Um, do you um, work with companies nationwide? And two, what do you see with the growth of small businesses taking on IT professionals?
So, uh, first question. Can you remind me of the first question?
Do you work with companies nationwide?
Oh, so I personally, the main company I support called Regional One is an international company. Now, in my Aegis Air Talent, I'm building out that staffing company specifically to an industry and a geography. I'm going to stay very niche. I want to stay very focused on the type of talent that I talk to. Um, so to answer your first question, no, because there's so many staffing agencies out there. um, I mean, I could probably rattle off 100 right now that call themselves international talent acquisition specialists, right? And they all say they are great at it, and not everybody is. So I'm very narrow. I'm very focused. I'm very concentrated on learning everything I can about regional aviation specifically in South Florida. There's over 1,000 aviation LLCs in essentially a 60-mile radius of Miami. Most of them are five-person mom and pop repair shops or distribution centers for aviation. So with 1,000 LLCs, there's a lot of companies to get to know, and not all of them can afford to recruit. So my thought process is, hey, if there's 1,000 companies and they need one hire a year, that's 1,000 opportunities for me. So I'm just going to focus on that and really dominate that market. So for your first question, I'm very, very focused, very, very niche environment. For your second question about smaller companies in AI and IT, um, that's it's really industry dependent. Like truthfully, it's industry dependent. Distribution, manufacturing, that kind of stuff has gone so fast into adopting technologies. There's 3PL, 4PL, 5PL. 3PL was brand new 15 years ago, and now it's been replaced by 5PL providers, which are your major carriers, right? And they've jumped into it because there's revenue to be made. So there are uh, industry specific considerations when they look at staffing IT. A lot of charities. I see a lot of 501(c)(3)s contracting out IT support. That's a very common thing. Mid-sized banks and larger have their own internal because of network security and all that, but some of the smaller banks will definitely contract out. Local credit unions will contract out IT support. Um, yeah, so I would say, specific to your second question, I would look at the industry you want to get into and then look at the risk, the IT risk that they have, and that will help you know whether they go third party or whether they're internal. Does that help?
Yes, and I appreciate the response, especially because it can be real tempting to say like I'll take anybody and I'll find you a job. But the fact that you are so specific to where your focus is leads to your credibility in that market. And I think that's really cool to see. And there may be folks on the call that are either in that area or don't mind moving to that area that could see the value that you bring to that. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, and thank you for your faith and personally, right? And, congratulations on your master's in divinity. That's a great accomplishment.
Yeah, it's no easy goal.
Thank you.
Yeah, especially going through epistemology. Twist your head sideways.
Epistemology,
Okay.
eschatology, and all the words uh that get you turned around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Linguistic gymnastics. Kamar, go ahead.
So my question, because you did mention that, there's a network of people out there who are willing to help. Like I'm trying to pivot into HR. I don't have any HR experience, but I have a master's in HR, and a lot of what I do is about dealing with people. And so far with my job hunt, like they're asking you for like 5, 7 years of HR experience that I don't have. So I'm struggling with getting those roles. What's your advice for me? Or, is there anywhere that you could, I mean, as you said, we have to start somewhere. You're not going to ideally
Yeah.
get the job that you want, but at least a foot in. How do
Yeah,
I get
absolutely.
in the door for something like this?
So I've got good news and bad news for you, right? And just I want to be honest and true to you. Right now, in the current world that we are in, there's like 170,000 out of work HR practitioners in the United States of America. So you're up against a giant learning curve. With that said, there is opportunity out there. And so, um, uh, first of all, are and you've got a master's in human resources, but you don't have the experience. What domain of HR do you want to work in? Do you want to be an HR generalist? Do you want to be I tell people that HR is essentially four components, right? There's what we in the 90s used to be considered traditional HR, right? Payroll, benefits, that kind of stuff, high cards. Um, and then fast forward, and all of a sudden, the internet came along, and San Francisco said, "Hey, look, there's this gap of talent, and we need people to really, really, really recruit the best computer people from around the world." And that's where TA, talent acquisition, became its own bubble within HR. And so that totally separates it. And now you're specializing, right? So you got HR generalists, which mainly was focused on payroll and keeping compliance and EEOC and all those kind of compliance tasks. And then you had TA. Well, eventually TA became so saturated, right? People were creating their own niche, and it was how do we retain the best talent, right? How do we keep people? How do we make them better and promote them? And that's where your talent management specialty came out, and so that's its own niche environment within HR. And then fast forward again, and in the 2010s, right, there was not enough workers, and there was lots of opportunity, and that's where your culture team came in, right? And in the late 2000s, late 2010s, you would start seeing people, instead of being the chief human resources officer, they were chief people officer. And the thought process was, well, if we change the title, it's not going to feel so legal. It's going to feel more people friendly and culture friendly and all those initiatives. And so when you look at your Fortune, let's say Fortune 500 companies, especially Fortune 100 companies, they'll have executives in each one of those domains. Traditional HR, which is compliance, payroll, all that fun stuff. Then you'll have talent management, promotions, and evaluations, recruiting, and culture. And so I would ask you to just stew on that and say, okay, where do I see myself? Especially since I'm getting into the game a little bit behind the curve experience wise. And then network within that community. So like if you are like, hey, I just want to be a recruiter, you and me, let's hang out. Like let's talk. Um, Find me on LinkedIn. Me and you become best friends and we can coach each other. Um, but if you were to sit there and say, hey, Rob, I want to be an HR business partner, I would tell you, holy crap, it's not my ball of wax. I'll introduce you to somebody that I work with. Um, there's other aspects to HR that really get into the nitty gritty, and it depends on how litigious the company is. Um, some companies will have entire teams dedicated to compensation analysis. Like the healthcare company I worked at, because they were always bringing in doctors and international doctors, there was a 15-person team that just looked at international dollars and how much it would take to get a doctor from XYZ country, get them a visa, get them over here, sponsor them for 3 years, all the stuff. And then from there, they would draw their compensation line in order for them to live in Florida and not jump ship right away. That's an aspect of HR that has some marketing components in it. And so I like my best advice for you specifically is depending on where you see yourself, big company, small company, whether you see yourself in the payroll aspect or the recruiting or the culture aspect of it, that's where you want to narrow your focus and start connecting with people in that world and say, hey, this is who I am. I need a shot. I mean, we all know you're awesome, right? That's all what we're looking for. You're a soldier, or you're one of us, so we know you're good. Now the question is just how do I get it on my resume? So somebody like myself would take a shot on you if you fit my need before I picked one of the 500 people who applied to the job. Does that help? Maybe. Okay.
Hey, so talk to me about your aerospace side of recruiting down in Florida. You mentioned there's a bazillion places down there looking for talent. What's all
Yeah.
that look like from your perspective?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I was
So
responding, but
aerospace.
I was on
Oh, go
mute.
ahead.
I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry, because I was talking like hell, I didn't realize I'd mute myself. No, so I was responding and saying, like, I have an idea about the different sides of HR, and I am leaning towards recruiting and people management, not so much payroll or none of that stuff. People management and
Okay.
recruiting aspects. So it's narrowed down to that. So I just need to get, in touch with, you said, connect with the right people who would be able to help me to navigate that.
And start with staffing agencies, right? There's it's a hustle, but there's good money in it. They're always looking for recruiters because they burn out of them. MedX, MEDEX, they are a healthcare focused staffing firm. There's Robert Half, which is more professional services, um,
Kelly
finance,
Services.
accounting. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But that's probably, if you want to get industry exposure and learn a technique that they and a proven system, right? They've been in business a long time. Those guys are the big guys. It's a good place to start, and they take people all the time.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, back on
Okay.
mine. So talk to me about
Yeah. So
aerospace.
back to aerospace, right? So aerospace is interesting, right? What people don't realize about aerospace, I didn't realize it at least. is it's so segmented, right? The big guys, the Deltas and stuff like that, you know, when Delta it's in its own ecosystem, the same way Apple's in its own ecosystem, Microsoft's in its own ecosystem, um, Amazon's its own ecosystem, right? But that's very, very rare. Um, most of the times, businesses have to go outside and they go to third parties. Delta is one of those that have its own ecosystem. American Airlines, right? They own the planes, they own the maintenance facilities, they hire people on contract directly from Boeing or Airbus to be the technical advisors. They have their own engineers, they have everything in-house. Um, Once you get away from the big players, it becomes very, very third party oriented. You get into the regional aircraft market. Let's say you want to fly from Miami to Orlando. Short trip, regional aircraft, single row, two seats on each side. Those are considered regional aircraft, 40 to about 120 passengers. Well, those people, those carriers generally don't have their own maintenance facilities. They don't have a warehouse because they don't have that many planes. So they're just, they're excited to fly and make revenue by transporting people. What happens when that, Embraer 175 turns around and the landing gear gets life cycled, right? Do they go down and stop flying for a month? No, they're going to go to a third party to A, have the supplies they need, B, install the supplies they need, and C, certify the new installation so they can fly and meet FAA regulations. So that's your majority of the aviation world does that. They're really good at doing one thing, right? Maybe they're part suppliers, maybe they're installers, right? Called MROs, maintenance, repair, and overhaul facilities. Maybe they're administratively strong and they coordinate all that stuff. But there's many businesses that focus on a singular aspect of the greater aviation industry. So then you have private planes, right? Charter planes. That's its own industry. Those are different aircraft most of the time. And so the technical knowledge for that is really specific, as well as the sales aspect of it. You're selling to an entirely different clientele. So a lot of times the regional aircraft sales folks and the charter aircraft sales folks, they don't cross over because there's different knowledge and experience and expertise with that. Then you have helicopters, rotary, right? And then you got military. And so again, with aviation, right, you start to see a lot of very niche environments where, people say, hey, I want to be in aviation, but you got to map what that looks like. I want to be in aviation for, a commercial carrier, Spirit, Delta, American, United, LATAM Airlines is a big South America one, and they have a hub here in Miami. But that looks completely different than, United Express or Eagle Air or, those kind of smaller carriers, which is completely different than, let's say Donald Trump's Gulfstream, right? Totally different aspects of the industry.
So like, where do you see, military folks lining up for jobs in that kind of a market? Maybe they don't have an A&P, but they got a ton of experience.
Yeah, so it's a very generic question. So the best thing I would tell you to do, if you've been turning wrenches and you want to keep turning wrenches, um, all of those MRO facilities, man, they'll hire you. Right? They're always looking for people, right? They're knock on a door and introduce yourself and say, hey, I'm an aviation person, and I will be on time every day, and you're going to be okay. Because all those facilities have A&Ps that have to be there in order to certify, right? And sign off on it, or engineers, right? Folks with master's degrees in aeronautical engineering, those are the people who are certified to do the paperwork. So if you just want to turn wrenches, which is great, and there's a lot of money in it, it's just knocking on doors and introducing yourself to head mechanics. The other aspect of it is the sales side, right? Um, One thing that I failed to recognize coming from the military, and it was a blind spot I had. The world runs on revenue, right? If you if you can't add revenue to the bottom line, if you're not adding value to the organization's P&L, they don't need you. And a lot of times they'll get rid of entire marketing departments, or they'll get rid of entire research departments and IT departments. They'll find ways to um, save money. But the one thing that a company always is in business for, and so therefore they always need, is revenue. If you're in sales, if you're in business development, if you're in a specialized aspect that adds value to the sales team, they're gonna be hunting for you.
Really, that's
So
pretty interesting. And how hard is it to get the A&P if you're working under folks like that?
Uh, it's a time thing. It's an hours thing more than anything. Certifications, right? They want a certain amount of hours of experience and coursework. But there's, you know, Baker is right down the road from Miami. It's actually across the street from Miami International Airport. It's been in business 87 years now, teaching people how to work on aircraft, and they take in 1,000 kids every year, and they're full within 2 days. So they pump out. Yeah, it's an important role.
Sorry, my interwebs here froze up. Matrix, go ahead.
Yeah.
Hey, how you doing, Rob? My name is Matrix. I'm actually stationed in Jacksonville. I've been in aviation for 8 years. So thank you for coming on. So it's actually nice to hear about your aerospace side of things. So I had a question. From your experience, what are some of like the biggest challenges that like aviation companies and aerospace are facing right now, like when it comes to like hiring?
That's a great question. I think there you go. And by the way, he says, yeah, see, there's a time requirement, 30 months experience. Yeah. Um, yeah, that's what they're looking for. So for you, Team Jazz, JAS, I want you to just poke them and said Rob Cook sent you, or just find me on LinkedIn. They're a sister company of ours, and they're based out of Jacksonville. Um, Separate from that, I think right now what you're seeing is regulatory hurdles. And with regulatory hurdles, there is the threat of tariffs. Most aviation companies that I see are international operators. It's a very global industry. And, even if you're Air India, you're flying from India to, let's say, Pakistan or China, you're crossing international borders, right? In Europe, the EU, even though it is the EU, there's still European Union regulations, and then trade barriers with the parts that are maybe manufactured in the United States, or maybe the OEM is manufacturing in Africa somewhere. And so there's great uncertainty with trade barriers from a macro perspective, right, in the industry. But I think that all settles out eventually. It's just my 2 cents. I don't worry about stuff like that. But I try to just keep my nose to the grindstone and find good people and put them in good positions.
I had another question too. For somebody, I mean, I have 8 years of aviation maintenance turning wrenches as well as about 6 years of quality assurance under my belt. So when it comes to like the quality assurance standpoint, how difficult it is it for somebody to get into the QA side?
That's a great question. I don't have a true answer for you. I can tell you anecdotally from my experience. Um, so for example, we have a distribution center in Greenville, South Carolina, and I have a QA QC guy there. Um, but it's all inbound intake. It's it's more of a measurement of, okay, we just bought these parts and they came to us. Let's evaluate whether we need to dunnage, right? Scrap metal, or if it's a tier one, tier two, how good of quality, how much is it going to be to repair it, and then send it to a repair facility, certify it, and then get it back out into the market. So from my perspective, right, a QA person, if because it's not production, we're not doing production, we're just doing resale. So from my perspective, I'm looking for somebody specifically with experience in very, very niche, very specific engines or airframes, right? If you have been on Boeing, very, very cool, but we don't need Boeing expertise. We need Bombardier and Embraer and ATR and de Havilland expertise. Um, so for me, because of the scenario where the location is, the fact that it's a small team, the guy that I'm looking for has got to be the guy, right? Or the girl. Excuse me. Let me not be sexist. There's some really cool. There's really good mechanics out there that are women, so I don't want to be. But there's got to be the right person for that particular role in Greenville. Um, Other facilities, depending on what level you want to do. Your background sounds like you got a ton of it. Um, you may want to jump into a QA QC role at one of the bigger firms, the Boeings or something like that, or Delta. Depending on where you are geographically, that'll impact you probably more than your knowledge base.
Okay, thank
Because
you.
yeah, I mean, if you went down to Miami, right, the airport there, if you went to Atlanta, the major hubs, holy cow, man, they're dying for people. Um, you may have to take, you may have to take 75,000, 80,000 a year before they give you, the true, 150, 160,000 a year job. But that's just how the industry works. Also, don't forget that the other thing, and I failed to mention this, there's a lot in the military, we don't have to deal with this. But if you've ever worked with your civilian counterparts, you probably have. If you work with L3 Vertex, all those guys, at least in the aviation industry, heavily unionized, right? And so depending on where you're at, you deal with union considerations with that could be a barrier to entry, or it could help you, right? If you join a union. But a lot of people don't think about that. And so mechanics, those kind of things, look towards a union and say, hey, I want to join a union and I want to find work. That's what they're there for. So it depends on the industry, right? It's specific to the industry, but in aviation, it's heavily unionized.
Good to
All right,
know.
thank you.
Keith, go ahead.
Yeah, so I've been going through this as well. I think me and the person who just asked that question are in the exact same spot. Same, I was an aviation electrician in the Navy for 10 years, and I have about 6 years quality assurance / program management stuff. And everything that you just said, Rob, is like right on the spot. I would say if you're looking to get into the civilian side and like any type of aviation maintenance, if you don't have an A&P certification, you have to get one. It's basically a requirement for just about anywhere civilian sector. And then I thought, oh, well, if I can't get my A&P, well, maybe I could do quality assurance because I'm not actually the one working on the aircraft. I'm just inspecting it. That's not how it works. To be a quality assurance inspector, you also have to have an A&P, and then you have to use your A&P in the civilian side for 3 to 4 years before you get approved to do any type of quality assurance stuff. So, but what Rob was saying about those unions, I've been looking on. I connected with Skillwork. They're one of the people that were on here not too long ago, doing trade skills, and they do a lot of factory placement for electricians. They've sent me like 4 or 5 jobs, really great program, but it's all like $30 an hour. I have a buddy, and then through the small groups yesterday, somebody was talking to like, dude, join a electrician union. And I was like, well, why? And he was like, man, so most jobs are paying $30 an hour. If you look through unions, a lot of their placements right now, and one of them was like, all you do is service lights on runways at an airport, $62 an hour starting. And also the union covers healthcare benefits, all those things that we're leaving the military, the union covers. So I just wanted to kind of drive that home for, not that you needed me to drive it home, Rob, but I've literally gone through this for the past month and a half trying to figure out and navigate all this stuff myself. It sounds like if you don't have an A&P, look for the union electrician job. If you do, then hey, you're probably going to be real solid and good on your own anyways. But yeah, I appreciate all that information.
Yeah. Well, and I'll give you one more. I'll give you right now. anecdotal again, anecdotal. I could use down here in Deerfield Beach, I could use somebody who understands aviation records. Now, it's not glamorous, it's not sexy. Um, but what happens is I get a piece from, let's say, I'm going to be totally fictitious, right? But I'm going to say Ryanair out of Ireland. I get a component. Let's say it's landing gear. It comes in. I bought it. Right. It was a great deal. Landing gear is going to come in. My QA QC guy is going to inspect it and say, "Hey, let's get it off to an MRO site." MRO is going to reset that landing gear. That's where you're speaking about the A&P and the quality inspection, right, before it's certified to get back on an aircraft. Okay, FAA regulations. So there's that component of it. But the other thing that somebody without an A&P but has the experience can do is they can sit right here in the cubby and they can look at the data, right? Because everything aviation has data sheets on it. And so that landing gear component from Ryanair should have paperwork. Well, my records team is going to look at it and say, "Hey, it's worth the investment," or "Hey, we don't have back to birth paperwork on it, so it's going to be a headache to fix it," and da 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 da. That is somebody that I could use who understands aviation and mechanic and the way the documentation goes, but they don't necessarily have to be an A&P to look at the documents and give advice, because I have an engineer here who signs off on it. So really it's just, and I mean, it's a 85 to $120,000 a year job at most major airlines. Just looking at documents, looking at records, and providing that level of expertise without a license attached to it. So it's a different way to look at opportunity. And the only reason why I bring that up is it goes back to that whole networking component of, well, what do I want to do? What industry would I want to be in, right? I don't know what I want to be when I grow up, but I know I want to be in aviation. I have this little bit of experience and knowledge base. So let me network with people who could say, "Oh, this is how the company operates. And this is one of the things they do." Like both of you guys up there, especially in Jacksonville, right? In Jacksonville, I mean, I know for a fact that we do MRO work and they're always looking for uh, experience to help them do the business aspect, not the maintenance aspect. Does that make sense? Right. And so there's two parts to that. There's a business aspect to it and being able to advise, "Hey, this is a crappy part," or, this thing's probably going to take XYZ amount of months to repair. And my experience is, it's going to have fluid leakage and we're going to have to transport it and blah, 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 blah. All the stuff that I don't know. But somebody like yourself would be like, "Oh, yeah, yeah, I've seen that 1,000 times." And then you add knowledge to the business case on buying that component or selling it.
Good news. Brandon, go
Hey,
ahead.
this is Brandon King. I was just going to reach out to Keaton, and I couldn't see the other guy's name. It wasn't on the screen. But man, I'm in the same boat. I'm 20 years aircraft electrician just for the Air Force instead. Don't get discouraged. And even if it says you need an A&P, if you can transfer the experience you have and get to talk to either the recruiter or get your foot in the door, you can land something. Because I'm waiting for an offer here in about 2 days, and the job title was for an audit and compliance manager. So basically, just one step below like the QA manager, and it had A&P wanted on there for the experience, but I just put in heavy of all the stuff that I did and all the QA experience that I had. And once I got to actually talk to somebody, they could see, okay, cool, you've got everything except for the little A&P. So I mean, if you've got everything else, but the job description says, A&P required, dude, shoot your shot, go for it. Because if you get to talk to a recruiter, if you get to talk to somebody, you might be able to express all the experience that you have, and they say, "Oh, okay, cool, you've got everything, you just don't have the A&P. We still want you." So, I mean, I feel you, because a lot of them say on there, you got to have your A&P. And I had a couple that said, no, I couldn't do the job unless I had it. But I think 3 out of the 4 said no for the specific ones. But this one, and I got an interview, and I'm waiting for an offer. Like, it worked out. So, like, I'd still shoot your shot, even if it says that.
Do you mind if I ask you, is that like a large scale corporation, or is it like a private airfield, or like what's the? I don't know if that makes a difference.
It might. So, I mean, the company's ST Engineering. They're global. They're headquartered out of Singapore. I'm over in the Panhandle. I'm over by like Destin and Crestview. And so the place I'll be working is at the Pensacola Airport, and right now they're contracted through United, doing a whole bunch of their MRO and stuff. So they're doing modifications, scheduled maintenance, things like that. They've got a 12 aircraft hangar that's over there, and I'm basically going to be the second guy underneath the QA manager there. But they've got inspector positions and everything else too. So it's a larger corporation.
That's
So you
good
didn't
news.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just
No,
saying thanks for answering. The only other insight that I had heard about that is that, like, I have a lot of buddies in the Navy that got out months before me. They continued to work on base on aircraft just through one of the contractors. None of them
Right.
required it because you're still on a military base doing military work. It's not commercial. So
Yeah,
but
this one's straight commercial. It's at the civilian Pensacola airport. I just wanted to throw out there, like, because I got discouraged and I wasn't applying to things that required the A&P or a couple other things. And man, if you can take your experience, don't sell yourself short. You did a lot of stuff. We all did a lot of stuff while we were in. And as long as you can convey and you're confident in yourself, hey, I can do this stuff, go for it. Worst thing they do is say no, you know?
They definitely need the talent. You're 100% right. Yeah, and there's again each organization, right? Depends on the organization. Some are going to have black and white standards that are not going to they're not going to deviate at all, right? Some of them are going to sit there and say, "Hell, I need a human in here who can make a decision," and they're not going to care because they'll pay for your A&P, right? I think one of the things that to learn about the civilian world is there's just so different. They're just so different, right? Two competitors can do things completely different and have totally different standards on how they do their hiring, their promotions. I mean, so it's just because one company says no, I would tell you it's keep pushing, right? Don't get discouraged. And everybody here should really, I mean, just think about how many people just right now just networked and said, "Hey, I'm in the same boat." You guys should all build yourself a conversation and support each other and lean in with each other. That is a huge part of making the transition.
that's been awesome. Hey, Rob, thank you very much for coming on. Any closing thoughts before I let you go?
Don't forget, before you get out, make sure you file for disability. Even if you have 0%, you should just file and get a rating. If you have 10% disability or more, you are open to VRNE, which is an additional GI Bill, essentially. So if you've burned through all your GI Bill, there's other education opportunities out there. If you're 100% disabled, you then create an opportunity for your wife independence, and that's called Chapter 35. Chapter 35, it pays for each one of your dependents. They get their own like GI Bill. Yeah, and make sure you're paying attention to health insurance, life insurance, all that fun stuff. Make sure you get your legal advice, get your will, your power of attorney, get that all done before you leave. Don't make excuses. Don't be lazy. Don't say, "Hey, I'll get it when I get out." Get it now because you never know what the future holds. And of course, everybody find me on LinkedIn, become one of my LinkedIn buddies and friends. And if you need anything, I'm here, right? Anything you need, even if you got a silly question, um, I want to be able to help. So, yeah, y'all have been great. Thank you for having me, and God bless you all. Thank you for your military service.
Awesome. Hey, thanks once again, Rob Cook, Aegis Air and Regional One. Thanks, brother. Appreciate you.